Dear students, let's learn about pollination today. We all know that a flower, in case of plants, this is the female reproductive part and we call it carpel. It consists of three parts: the stigma, then this long stalk, we call it style, and this is the ovary. Within this ovary, these are the structures that you can find. These are the ovules. This is the male reproductive part. We refer to this male reproductive part as stamen. Stamen, again, it has got two parts. One is this anther and it has a long stalk again. This long stalk is referred as filament. So these are the two reproductive parts that you have in a flower. Now, let us see. As we know that in sexual reproduction, the beginning event, that is the formation of gametes. This is the beginning event that happens first, the formation of gametes, or we also call it gametogenesis. So gametogenesis or formation of gametes, this is the beginning event, which actually takes place, as far as sexual reproduction is concerned. Now, what we understand by gametes. Gametes actually refer to the reproductive cells. Those plants which reproduce sexually, they also form these reproductive cells, that is gametes. Now, male reproductive cells, those are formed within these anthers. There are special structures which are formed in these anthers. Those structures are called pollen grains. These pollen grains contain the male reproductive cells, while as the female reproductive cell, that is formed within the ovary. Within the ovary we have these ovules. So male reproductive cells female reproductive cells वो इन ovules में बनती है. So this is the site where female reproductive cells are formed. The egg is formed here in the ovules. So eggs are formed in the ovules. The male gametes are formed in the pollen grains. Now, how do these male gametes get to these eggs? How do they reach to the eggs? ये eggs तक कैसे पहुंचते हैं? These male gametes. What happens? These pollen grains, they transfer from anther. ये transfer हो जाते हैं anther से, and they land on the stigma. Stigma, this is the part of the female reproductive part, that is carpel. They land on it. When they land on it, this transfer of pollen grains from anther of male reproductive part, that is stamen, to the stigma of female reproductive part, that is carpel. This is what we understand by pollination. We call this process pollination. So pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from, they transfer from anther, and where do they go? They go to the stigma. They land on the stigma. To the stigma. this transfer of pollen grains, okay, from anther to the stigma, this is what we understand by pollination, okay. So pollination is prerequisite, okay, for fertilization to take place. So pollen grains, okay, they will be containing the male gametes, then those male gametes will come down, okay, through the style, they will get to the ovules, okay, there they will fertilize the egg. But before fertilization, before fusion of the gametes takes place, it is necessary that pollination has to happen. Now the question is, the bigger question is, how does it happen? Okay, how is it possible for this pollen grain to get to the stigma? Okay, how does it happen? For example, in case of humans, if you see, in case of humans, अगर आप humans में देखेंगे, जो male gamete है, okay, that is motile, okay, it can swim in fluid and it can move. But here, the male gametes are contained within these structures, okay, those structures are what we call pollen grains, उनको हम pollen grains कहते हैं. So यहाँ पे ये कैसे होता है? How does this transfer takes place? ये transfer कैसे होता है? ये pollen grains कैसे transfer होते हैं onto the stigma, okay, from anther, okay. There are different agents which actually do this job, जो ये काम करते हैं. मुख्तलिफ agents हैं जो help करते हैं इन pollen grains को to go from anther, okay, to the stigma. आपने देखा होगा some insects, okay, like the worker honeybees, especially the workers. What do these worker honeybees do? Okay, you might have observed that they move, they go from one flower to another. They first sit on one flower, then they go to another flower. Okay, why do they do so? They actually do so to collect nectar. But while doing so, while collecting nectar, okay, they go from one flower to another. What do? Pollen grains actually stick to their body, okay. So when pollen grains stick to their body, when they go to another flower, they can dust those pollen grains on the stigma there. So this is how they help, how these insects like the honeybees, they help in transporting rather these pollen grains from one flower to another, okay, thereby bringing about pollination. So number one agent that can help in this are the insects, okay. And if pollination is done by insects, अगर insects जो हैं वो help कर रहे हैं in transferring these pollen grains from anther to the stigma, if they are helping, we call it entomophily. E-N-T-O-M-O. So this is called entomophily, okay. This is pollination by insects, okay. So we can write it down. Pollination by insects. Now, is this the only agent? Are there only insects which help in pollination? Okay. No, there are some other agents as well. The pollen grains which are actually formed in the anther, when they come out of the anther, it is wind can also, wind जो है वो भी इन pollen grains को okay ले जा सकती है from anther to the stigma. So wind can be another agent of pollination, and if the pollination is done by wind, we call it anemophily. So this is called anemophily, okay. So anemophily is pollination by wind. In case of some other plants, especially those plants, okay, which grow on the seashore or which grow near water bodies. So what happens? इवन वाटर कैन हेल्प इन पॉलिनेशन। ऐसे प्लांट्स में वाटर के जरिए से भी पॉलिनेशन हो सकती है, यानी वाटर के जरिए से पोलन ग्रेन्स जो है वो ट्रांसफर होंगे फ्रॉम एंथर टू द स्टिग्मा, एंड दैट पॉलिनेशन इज कॉल्ड hydrophily. Okay, so hydrophily, this is pollination by water. So there can be different agents. Okay, so pollination जो है, insects can bring about pollination. Pollination can be brought about by wind. Okay, wind के जरिए से भी pollination हो सकती है, वाटर के जरिए से भी पॉलिनेशन हो सकती है. ओके, सो दीज आर द डिफरेंट एजेंट्स विच कैन ब्रिंग अबाउट पॉलिनेशन. लेट्स हैव अ क्विक रिकैप. सो व्हाट वी अंडरस्टैंड बाय पॉलिनेशन, पॉलिनेशन इज जस्ट ट्रांसफर ऑफ पोलन ग्रेन्स फ्रॉम एंथर टू द स्टिग्मा. ओके, सो पॉलिनेशन को फर्टिलाइजेशन के साथ कंफ्यूज नहीं करना है. पॉलिनेशन सिर्फ ट्रांसफर है पोलन ग्रेन्स का एंथर से ऑन टू द स्टिग्मा. ओके, सेकेंड, how does it happen? There can be different agents. Okay, मुख्तलिफ agents हो सकते हैं जिनके जरिए से pollination हो सकती है. So insects के जरिए से भी pollination हो सकती है जिसको हम entomophily कहते हैं. इसी तरह से wind के जरिए से भी pollination हो सकती है, we refer to it as anemophily. इसी तरह से water के जरिए से भी pollination हो सकती है and we call it hydrophily. Thank you.